What is it like to see all 5 mass extinction events on Earth at once? Around 4.6 billion years ago, gases and particles in the solar system slowly gathered over billions of years, forming huge rocks hundreds of kilometers wide. Due to gravity, these rocks kept colliding and eventually merged into the early Earth. But back then, Earth lacked a solid surface, only vast expanses, with temperatures over 1200 degrees Celsius. Under the intense radiation and the violent impacts of asteroids and comets, the Earth at that time resembled a living hell, constantly sighing in the abyss. Geologists refer to this period as the Hadean Eon, representing a hellish beginning before the birth of life on Earth. About 4.2 billion years ago, a comet with water collided with Earth. The heat from volcanic eruptions and meteor impacts brought lots of water to the planet. Subsequently, a heavy rain persisted for tens of millions of years, eventually transforming Earth into an ocean planet, thus creating the conditions necessary for nurturing life. Around 3.9 billion years ago, Earth's temperature began to drop, yet it remained a desolate world. At that time, there was almost no oxygen, only turbulent seas, rugged rocky cliffs, and terrifying volcanic eruptions. However, it was during this period, in the depths of the dark oceans, that an incredible miracle occurred. Life emerged from some remarkable chemical reactions. Through interactions with specific substances, a single-celled organism named Luca was created. This marked the origin of all things on Earth. Around 2.6 billion years ago, as land lava had been erupting for millions of years, a large amount of toxic gases filled the entire sky, and the Earth was covered by massive methane clouds, giving it the appearance of a yellow celestial body. However, at this time, plankton appeared in the oceans. Their cell structures became not only more complete, but also evolved to perform photosynthesis, producing large amounts of oxygen and transforming the Earth into a blue planet. This is the famous Great Oxidation Event. It was due to this event that greenhouse gases in the atmosphere were significantly reduced, causing Earth's temperature to plummet. Over 2.4 billion years ago, Earth experienced the Huronian glaciation, which lasted for tens of millions of years, temporarily halting the progress of life and turning Earth into a snowball. As volcanic activity on the ocean floor released large amounts of greenhouse gases, the glaciers gradually melted and the gentle sunlight once again shone upon Earth's oceans. Over the next hundreds of millions of years, life's evolution was very slow. Then, 1.6 billion years ago, a significant event in Earth's biological history happened. True bacteria and archaea accidentally merged, slowly evolving into eukaryotic organisms. Around 600 million years ago, eukaryotes rapidly evolved, resulting in many soft-bodied, multicellular invertebrates. They formed the most unique Ediacaran biota, and faced with abundant resources and a suitable environment, along with a lack of predators, the organisms of this period chose to remain complacent. Eventually, on a day 540 million years ago, the emergence of arthropods became a nightmare for these lower invertebrates. They advanced over the remains of the Ediacaran animals, thus opening the first grand chapter in Earth's history of life, the Cambrian period. The Cambrian explosion, the oceans here. The scene was grand, with many new creatures emerging. The first dominant predator, Anomalocaris, hunted armored trilobites freely, while also waiting for chances. Alongside Opabinia, sea scorpions, Halicigenia, Morella, and numerous other uniquely shaped organisms, the earliest vertebrates on Earth also made their appearance, such as Hycoichthys, a soft-bodied, jawless, fish-like organism. Although scientists continue to debate the definitive cause of the Cambrian explosion, it is undeniable that their emergence established the groundwork for the subsequent diversity of life forms and complex ecosystems on Earth. At this time, the land was barren and not suitable for life. However, near a piece of land close to the ocean, a composite of algae and fungi was the first to initiate a challenge. It was precisely because of the emergence of this miraculous combination that it was able to conquer this barren land. His most significant accomplishment was undeniably the progressive expansion of mycelium beneath the surface, which effectively broke down the solid rocks. This process resulted in the creation of the initial soil on Earth, thereby laying the foundation for future plant life. In due course, the earliest terrestrial plants, mosses, emerged. Despite their leaves consisting of merely a single layer of cells, which hindered upward growth, they were capable of rapid reproduction and dispersal, swiftly covering the entire continent. And for the next 40 million years, it became the sole ruler of the Earth's land at that time. Approximately 485 million years ago, when everything seemed to be steadily progressing and life was continuously evolving, a disaster quietly arrived. It is speculated that violent activity from underwater volcanoes led to a sharp decline in oxygen levels, severely impacting the marine biosphere of that era. Although this event, many typical Cambrian organisms were wiped out, but several groups managed to survive, marking the official end of the Cambrian period and the beginning of a new era for Earth. The Great Ordovician radiation occurred around 468 million years ago, during which the oceans underwent dramatic changes. Compared to the Cambrian period, the size of animals during the Ordovician period increased several times. Mollusks began to flourish, persistently engaging in relentless life and death struggles. The trilobite family continued to exist, with their protective armor becoming increasingly robust, while their adversaries naturally grew even more terrifying. The Orthoceras, which could reach a length of 9 meters, successfully defeated the Anomalocaris, becoming the new ruler of the seas. It was also during this period that a very important new form of life appeared: the world's first vertebrates, the early fish known as ostracoderms. These would eventually give rise to amphibians, reptiles, mammals, birds, and more. However, the ancestors of humans were still at the very beginning of their long journey. In the meantime, terrestrial plants successfully developed lignin, which enabled them to grow significantly larger. To compete for sunlight, they initiated intense competition, resulting in a dramatic explosion of plant life. Nevertheless, unexpectedly, during this more than 20 million year period of flourishing life, Earth encountered its first mass extinction event, known as the Ordovician extinction. Around 445 million years ago, due to the rampant absorption of carbon dioxide by numerous vascular plants, a cooling effect was generated. The Earth, having lost the protection of greenhouse gases, entered an extreme cold mode. The seawater rapidly cooled and froze, and more than half of the global area was turned into glaciers. Beneath these beautifully intricate ice crystal patterns, it also became the graveyard of all creatures. Although this event directly led to the death of 85% of life, there were some resilient organisms that chose to migrate to deep-sea areas, thereby preserving the spark of life. Every nightmare eventually ends, and 2 million years after the Great Ice Age, global temperatures began to slowly rise, heralding the start of a magnificent thaw. Over the course of several thousand years, nearly all the glaciers disappeared. The Earth returned to its azure blue and entered the Silurian period of life's revival. In this brief span of over 20 million years, not only did it heal the wounds caused by the Ordovician mass extinction, but it also nurtured a great upheaval. As Earth's temperature gradually rose, plankton began to proliferate in large numbers. Although armored arthropods dominated the oceans during this time, the once inconspicuous vertebrates began to emerge. Fish gradually began to quietly gain strength, evolving movable jaws over an extended period of time. Finally, 400 million years ago, with the big boom of the fish era, Earth entered the Devonian period. The oceans during this period were undoubtedly a paradise for vertebrates, showcasing a high diversity among fish. Among them, as a representative of placoderms, Dunkleosteus became the largest marine predator dominating the Devonian era. They reached a length of 10 meters and weighed 4 tons, not only possessing incredibly hard armor but also having an astonishing bite force. Even the extremely hard ammonites could be crushed in one bite. It can be said that with an astonishing jaw combined with a flexible spine, such a perfect combination allowed subsequent vertebrates to advance fearlessly. At the same time, the land was no longer just simple mosses and gymnosperms. True plants grew into towering trees over 10 meters high, forests quickly formed, and the soil and atmospheric components were optimized, allowing terrestrial life to begin to flourish. As the first arthropods to step onto land, they ruled the primitive rainforest. About 370 million years ago, a major evolutionary miracle happened when the sole lobe-finned fish, able to breathe with lungs, under pressure from placoderm fish, crawled onto the beach, achieving the monumental feat of landing. This event later led to the creation of the largest vertebrate groups on land. It can be said that all birds and beasts today, including humans, have evolved from this. Perhaps because the existence of the Dunkleosteus was too extraordinary, nature decided to start anew. Around 360 million years ago, underwater volcanoes and mantle plumes suddenly erupted in succession. The scorching lava caused the sea temperature to rise rapidly, turning this once thriving ocean into a terrifying inferno. Although half of the fish species failed to survive, the Dunkleosteus managed to endure until the subsequent explosive increase in plankton numbers led to a rapid decrease in oceanic oxygen levels, which finally brought down the once invincible. Dunkleosteus has fully exited history's stage. This was Earth's second mass extinction event, called the Devonian extinction. This event directly led to the death of 75% of marine life, with remnants of life scattered along coastlines worldwide. Meanwhile, as marine life faced catastrophic destruction, terrestrial life was flourishing, and the Earth's ecological balance was undergoing significant changes. The time is 345 million years ago, during the Carboniferous period, when continental plates were less spread out than today. It was in a process of gradual convergence, with large areas of tropical rainforests concentrated there, resulting in a warm and humid climate during this period, covered with lush forests and swamps. This led to the Earth's oxygen levels reaching an unprecedented peak, with oxygen concentration even being twice what it is today. This influence led to many unusually large arthropods, like giant dragonflies with wingspans bigger than eagles, giant millipedes over a meter long, and the 3-meter-long aggressive giant deer. Thus, the Carboniferous period is also called the Age of Giant Insects. The lobe-finned fish, which had already managed to land, evolved into the 4-limbed Carboniferous amphibians. They became top predators in Carboniferous waters and marked the start of the amphibian era. About 320 million years ago, Earth's land masses merged into Pangaea, leading to a dry inland climate. Vast forests that once blocked the sun collapsed, rivers and swamps nearly vanished, and large areas turned to desert. Consequently, oxygen levels dropped, and these giant insects couldn't adapt, facing extinction. This is the Carboniferous rainforest collapse event. Some amphibians that needed to lay eggs in water evolved due to the reduction of water sources. The outer membrane of their eggs gradually became a hard shell, allowing them to be laid on land, thus forming the first egg on Earth. At the same time, some amphibians also evolved into amniotes, allowing them to completely break free from the limitations of water sources and explore farther regions. At this point, Earth entered the final epoch of the Paleozoic era, a chaotic age of giant beasts known as the Permian period. Over time, around 300 million years ago, amniotes had spread across the supercontinent Pangaea and had differentiated into two major lineages, the synapsids and the sauropsids. The former were the ancestors of mammals, while the latter evolved into reptiles and birds. The endless struggle began now. Back then, reptiles like the shield-armored dragon were still weak. Though they could grow to 3.5 meters and had heavy armor, they ate plants. Meanwhile, therapsids, like the gorgonopsians, were the top predators of the Permian period. They grew over 3 meters long, with teeth up to 15 centimeters, hunting reptiles like the shield-armored dragon. Although at this time the synapsids were at their peak, there were still exceptions. For instance, the timid aquatic reptiles would retreat to their burrows at the slightest disturbance. Perhaps it was this very nature that caused it survived the most catastrophic mass extinction event in Earth's history. The time was 251 million years ago. With a loud bang, a supermantle plume located beneath what is now Sichuan province suddenly erupted. The massive earthquake instantly tore apart the seabed plates and affected the active volcanic region of Siberia. Trillions of tons of magma spewed from the mantle, rapidly spreading across the globe, ultimately engulfing half of the Pangaea continent. Even though a few animals managed to escape, the disaster was far from being over. Volcanic ejecta descended like raindrops, igniting widespread wildfires, causing a breakdown in the food chain and completely collapsing the entire ecosystem. All animals perished in their struggle. This was the most catastrophic Permian extinction event in history. In this natural disaster, as much as 95% of the Earth's species were wiped out. It even almost destroyed the Earth's ecosystem that had evolved over billions of years. However, life ultimately left a glimmer of hope. Fungal organisms with their strong adaptability were the first to take over the post-apocalyptic landscape. After tens of thousands of years of recovery, 250 million years ago, Earth finally ushered in the Mesozoic era, beginning with the Triassic period. In the early stages following the mass extinction, there were almost no large predators, which allowed the decinodont population to thrive, rising from the bottom of the food chain to the top. During this period, the decinodonts accounted for 3/4 of all terrestrial vertebrates, a feat unmatched by other animals. However, such dominance was clearly not destined to last. With the changes in the Triassic landscape, the temperature of the Pangaea began to soar, reaching as high as 60 degrees in the central regions of the land, giving rise to the largest desert in Earth's history. Throughout history, few animals have been able to survive in the desert, but lizards became an exception. Their strong adaptability enabled them to rise from the desert. Eventually, 248 million years ago, the once inconspicuous small lizards gradually evolved into powerful predators, not only possessing strong defensive capabilities, but also mastering formidable predatory skills. And turned the water dragon beasts, which ruled Earth for almost 4 million years, into a buffet. From this point, Earth officially entered the age of reptiles. During this time, various reptiles emerged, making land competition exceptionally fierce. Meanwhile, the prolonged drought pushed Earth's temperature to a critical point. Around 234 million years ago, a long-awaited heavy rain fell in the depths of the extremely arid Pangaea, and the subsequent 2-million-year wet period completely transformed the landscape of the continent. This is the famous Carnian pluvial event, where various small green plants grew rapidly like mushrooms after rain. The once arid land became moist, and grasslands gradually turned into forests. Meanwhile, Earth's species began to undergo significant changes. Those short animals that evolved to feed only on ferns due to drought gradually went extinct as they could not adapt to environmental changes. Meanwhile, crocodilian turtles and mammals began to emerge on the stage of Earth's history. About 230 million years ago, the southern cross dinosaur was born, starting to change the direction of Earth's evolution. Initially, they were quite small, but as carbon compounds increased, their bodies grew larger and larger. Eventually, archosaurs began to take the stage of history. Although the Earth took 50 million years to repair its ecosystem, it ultimately could not escape the verdict of fate. Frequent tectonic movements 203 million years ago caused a series of global volcanic eruptions, releasing massive amounts of carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. The increasing greenhouse gases led to climate warming and ocean deoxygenation, among other effects. 76% of species disappeared from Earth as they couldn't adapt to the drastic environmental changes marking the Triassic mass extinction event. Fortunately, the Archosaurian dinosaurs were miraculously chosen by history. As time moved to the Jurassic period 200 million years ago, the age of dinosaurs rose to prominence. Pterosaurs and birds took to the skies and mammals experienced astonishing evolutionary events one after another, with dinosaurs officially declaring their dominion over the Earth. Among notable creatures there's the giant Diplodocus, up to 27 meters, and pterosaurs, first to conquer the skies. The ruthless ruler of the seas, the Mosasaurus, the top land predator Allosaurus, and the Stegosaurus, which could use its tail as a weapon. There were even the oldest true mammalian creatures like the Cynodelphis. It can be said that the success of the dinosaur era was not only due to its long reign, but also because these unique creatures, with the strong support of their environment, created such a stunning spectacle of life. Around 145 million years ago, the Earth finally welcomed the biological explosion of the Cretaceous period, during which countless colorful flowers began to appear, using surrounding animals for pollination, bringing plant diversity to another peak. At the same time, the dinosaur kingdom hit its peak. The Quetzalcoatlus soared, competing with pterosaurs for air dominance. The semi-aquatic Spinosaurus dove into the water to vie with early crocodilians for river control. The largest land dinosaur, the Sauroposeidon, stood tall, surveying the land, while the huge Deinosuchus lurked by the riverbank. Meanwhile, the flying Microraptor darted through jungles. The Therizinosaurus, with its scythe-like claws, is hunting in groups. The largest ceratopsid, the Triceratops, is fighting among themselves, while the weak Mosasaurus has transformed into a giant, dominating the entire Cretaceous ocean. The monarch Tyrannosaurus rex of the Tyrannosauridae emerged, ruling the entire Cretaceous continent. Earth's life forms had hit a peak, yet this strong and seemingly unshakable empire faced a historic moment. Around 65 million years ago, a Chicxulub asteroid, about 10 kilometers wide, sped toward Earth at 70,000 kilometers per hour, hitting the sea where the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico is. The impact explosion was 11 times that of an atomic bomb. The violent impact turned all life within a radius of 1,500 kilometers to ashes, with over 3 trillion tons of debris being ejected into space at speeds of thousands of kilometers per hour, triggering a massive tsunami that caused many animals to be buried underwater. Although large dinosaurs managed to escape this catastrophe, the disaster was far from over. The ejecta resulting from the explosion descended like raindrops, with the high-temperature particles igniting widespread wildfires. Whether on land or soaring in the sky, all the dinosaurs found themselves with nowhere to escape. The dust that filled the atmosphere blocked sunlight for decades, plunging the Earth into extremely cold weather conditions. Plants withered due to their inability to perform photosynthesis, and the surviving dinosaurs eventually perished because they could not adapt to the drastic environmental changes. The entire ecosystem completely collapsed, and the Earth fell into silence as a result. Thus, in this catastrophic Cretaceous extinction, the most fascinating era of dinosaurs in the history of life came to an end.